in Japan is that they accept the beat the children.
Mm.
I just know from the TV and the movie they say the husband will beat the wife.
I don't think that's normal practice. I don't think that's normal practice at all.
No, that's not normal. That's actually a very different issue, I guess. That's domestic violence, I think.
Okay, wait, that's interesting though. So it's basically okay to hit the kid, but it's not okay to hit the partner.
Okay, let's take a look at it this way.
If the kids saw the parents to beat them, so I think when they grow up, they also will beat their wife or husband.
It's different here. You know, beating a child is meant to correct them. That's the sole purpose of doing that. You know, so you don't beat a child to injure or kill them. You know, you didn't beat them to leave a scar. You beat them to correct them, and you tell them the reason why you're beating them. You tell them, oh, I'm beating you because you did this thing wrong. And so you don't do it next time, and I don't beat you. It's a carrot and stick approach. It's embedded into the societal norm. You know, you beat them because you love them. You know, basically, you beat them because you don't want them to be spoiled. It's just like you see your kids trying to, you know, take a piece of meat in the pot. Naturally, that's wrong, basically. But they can take that meat while telling you, oh, I took a meat in the pot. That's the proper way of doing it. But they take it without telling you, then it becomes wrong. And then you have to beat them. That offense cannot go unpunished. Most African parents or Nigerian parents don't know how to initiate other ways of punishment. Other ways of punishments are much more prolonged. Beating does the job instantaneously. You have parents who would beat you and they would tell you, oh, I'm sorry for beating you, and they'll buy you a drink. Yeah, they do that after they've beaten the child. And then in the process of doing that, the child would realize that, oh, I don't think this beating is out of hatred. You know, this beating is because it's necessary. It's a correctional, you know, instrument. So, but it's different when it comes to a man hitting their wife. That's domestic violence, basically. You know, in Nigeria here, you can't go to the cops to report that your parents beat you. The cops would basically beat you on top of that beating that you've gotten. You know, you can't go to the cops to report that. The cops would beat you on top of that.
Yeah. I can imagine that situation. Yeah, from being in China, just not beating necessarily, but like when my friends maybe disagree with their parents and they complain to somebody else, it's like, no, you listen to your parents.
You know, so the cops understood that beating had to happen. A man beating their wife, that's domestic violence. That's punishable by the law. When people quarrel in marriages or relationships, you know, exchanging words or calling themselves names is normal. You know, but when it graduates to beating is when it becomes wrong. It's taken seriously as well, not just by the constitution, by the moral compasses of people. It is religiously wrong, it is lawfully wrong, it is psychologically wrong, and it is socioculturally wrong at the same time. So it is wrong on all aspects of life. When it comes to Nigeria, I don't know about other countries or other cultures. It is wrong on all aspects. So let us not even begin to talk about children seeing their parents hitting one another. So that's a very different issue to kind of dissect. That's not comparable. Those two kind of beatings are not comparable. Okay. So why one is a tool in a sociocultural aspect of a country, the other one is seen as a crime that should be punishable by the law.
It's interesting though, because I think in America and Japan too, I think these are treated almost the same. And in some situations, they might consider beating a child worse because the child has less awareness of what's going on, less opportunity to escape. I think most people would put them kind of on the same level. What about in Hong Kong? Do people feel that way? Are they equal to each other, or is it different? If somebody hits their wife, is it the same as someone hitting their child?
First of all, is in Hong Kong, we are not allowed to beat our child. The law said you can't.
There's a law kind of protecting kids in the same way, right?
Yeah. Yes. Even though you just use the law to beat the hand, you can't. Yeah. So I think it's different. But I think the whole society accept that it's not necessary to beat our child to correct them. But
it's not necessary. Yeah.
I can't. Yeah, it's not necessary. I
Okay.
think it's not the only way to correct them.
Mm. So can you give us some idea, like other ways to how parents can discipline their kids?
Yeah.
And is it better or is it worse, or is there a better way that they're not doing?
Okay, since I have no kids, so I'm not sure. But
None of us have kids, right?
Yeah,
So this is
but
a difficult topic for us to talk
I am
about.
a kid. I am a kid in my heart. I'm a kid in my heart.
Right? Yeah.
But from my observation, most of us just try to communicate with them, like talk and help them, let them understand. Because I also agree, because even though when you beat him, beating is make him feel painful. And then if this is the punishment, it's not mean they understand what they're doing wrong.
Even if they explain it, though.
Yes, because I try to remember when my mother beat me. Actually, even though what she told me, I just can't listen.
Yeah. You didn't really hear it.
Yes, because I was angry. I was not accept about everything. So I think I have this experience. I don't agree, because it's not the only way. It's not work. I can say it's not work. But I also will think about, so is it mean we don't need the jail? Because it's also like the other punishment when the people doing wrong. I think if we choose to beat our children, our kids, we have to give more attention to them and then explain what happened, what he's doing wrong, yes, and then have to explain with them why you beat him. I mean, explain it. This action actually is not necessary, but why you do it. Because if you can't not communicate with them, it will make a big trouble, I think.
You didn't understand why your parents were doing it. Did they explain it to you?
I'm not. No, they didn't explain to me.
Okay.
But I can. But when I observe, I know that it's also just from anger, or because I can't follow their rule, or I can't do what they want. So it means it's not my fault in that moment, I think.
How did you know it wasn't your fault?
I didn't know it, but just from what I remember, I think that's not I did wrong. Until now, I think I'm not wrong. Yeah.
So do you think they were wrong? Do you think they were wrong?
Yeah, I still think they're wrong. So this is a problem. So this problem, yes, because you can't correct them, actually. It's you think you can correct them, but actually you can't. It
didn't fix anything then, I guess.
Yes,
that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Then I think they might have been applying the wrong method of beating. You know, the thing with beating is yeah. No, the thing with beating is that it has to be systemic and purposeful for it to actually feel right. Okay, it has to be purposeful. You don't beat out of anger or out of resentment or out of frustration.
Okay.
Yeah, you beat because you love. So
what is the step will you do it when you want to beat a child?
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about now. That's what I want to talk about now. When I was younger, I had people who would not tell you why they would beat you, but immediately you do something wrong, you know, they beat you on the spot, and that ends it. You get it? So you would realize, oh, that thing I just did was bad. That's why the beating came. The beating would there's a system of causality at play. This happens, so this has to happen. There's a process of causality with beating. Most of the times when we were beaten when I was younger, I knew the reasons why I was beaten, even if I was way young. I knew the reason why I was beaten, even if sometimes they didn't verbally communicate it. You know, the thing is, parents back then were not perfect with how they beat their kids. You know, they didn't take the right measures. You know, they just beat because, oh, it's my child, it's my property. I have to do what I want with my property. He's my son. I bore him. I carried him 9 months in my belly. So I have that right to beat him. That's why some parents beat back then. You know, they don't think a child has, you know, that right to reject that beating. They have to accept it because their mother is their mother, or their child is their child. That bond is there, so no one can intrude. You know, so, but I think people should beat rightfully. Beating, I don't think beating is bad. I think it's okay. But it depends on how you now beat a child to correct them. You don't beat them to injure them. You don't beat them because you hate them. You beat them because you have to correct a process in their life. You know, but sometimes it's not all punishment that needs one to beat their child. It's not all crime or all offense. There are some offense that a child would commit and you call them and tell them this thing you have done is bad. You're not supposed to do this. You tell them some uplifting things in life. You generally advise them to do better. But when you see them repeating that same thing again and again and again, it gets to a stage you beat them. So I guess that measure of correcting them didn't work. You know, then you know that the beating would eventually work. So that's how some people do it. We had people who beat with belts. When you watch some Western films, you would see that some parents beat with belts. I'm not, you've come across this, haven't you?
On television or in real life?
Yeah, on television and in real life.
Maybe my grandparents' generation experienced that, but my generation, not really. Well, on TV, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think beating is kind of bad, you know. It's not a capital punishment. You know, it's been modernized. It's been modernized to be done purposefully. Okay. You know, some children can be so stubborn and obstinate. You don't change their mindset until you beat them.
I want to be clear though, like how hard are we talking about?
Yeah, that's the message I was trying to pass across.
Okay.
When you're beating out of hatred, you are beating to injure them. Okay, so you are just beating them just a little bit to like correct them.
Just because you talked about bruises before, do you think the parents are leaving bruises still, or is that a problem, or is that's where you draw the line, or what?
Yeah, there has to be a line you draw. There has to be a line. Back when I was in school, we were given a lot of bruises. No one cared. You know, that was wrong. Okay. That one was particularly wrong.
Okay.
You know, so there has to be a line. While I was in school, the way people were beaten was much more harsher back then. I'm talking about 1999, 2000, 2001. So the beating back then was crazy. It was hellish. So, but now it's not barbaric as it was back then. Just like I mentioned before I said it's generationally different from generation to generation. The beating gets easier. It becomes softer over time, but it generally has to be there. It's not taken away. It's there, but it just decreases over time.
It's challenging for me to even talk about this because just in my culture, this is just absolutely wrong. Nobody accepts it anymore. But I'm a little bit different in that I don't want to accept the cultural knowledge as just the common sense, because I feel that there's a lot of things people don't know, and a lot of things that are case by case, and a lot of things it's outside of our experience. So it's difficult for us to make a fair judgment on it. So I'm trying to come at this from a more like personal, like I'm trying to strip away my personal kind of upbringing in order to see this from my own perspective. And I think I still have a problem with it just because I know a lot of adults and a lot of parents that have no idea what they're doing, and they're not really adults. Like they're adults in their age, but they're not really adults in their hearts. They don't have much self-control. When you say it's okay to beat a kid, who's to say that the adult really is not just abusing the child completely?
Yeah, exactly. That's why we think being a parent is something that you should only do when you're mentally prepared.
Okay. Yeah.
That's why people are not encouraged to have kids when they are not psychologically financially or physically available or prepared. You know, so it's something that we don't encourage young people to have kids when they're early, because it brings repercussion, especially when it comes to child upbringing. That's why we have so many we have so many children in Nigeria. They lacked the right upbringing. We encourage people to have kids when they are ready, you know, because of this particular point you raised at this point in time. Being a parent is difficult. Being a teacher is difficult. You know, Ching mentioned something. She said teaching is just a job, but that's different in so many other cultures. You know, in Nigeria, teaching is not just a job. It's more like a responsibility. You know, people don't do it just because of the money. You know, majorly people do it because of the money, but immediately you get into the sector where you are working, they inculcate a kind of mindset into you that, oh, you are not just their teacher, you are their second parent. You're responsible for how they talk to people. You are responsible for how they curse, how they talk to others. So because they spend more time with you in school, means there's a sort of emotional connection. They spend more time with their teachers in school, so there's a sort of connection which sort of fosters a sort of second parenthood to kids. It's kind of difficult sometimes, but it's complicated. The way we are talking about it's kind of complex. You know, you are coming from a particular standpoint. I'm coming from a particular standpoint. She is coming from another standpoint. So it makes it kind of complicated to talk about because there are so many angles.
Right.
Yeah, because you raised the angle of bringing up a child, you know, and you said so many people are not prepared to be parents, but they are parents because they are parents.
I personally feel that most parents aren't prepared. Like nobody's prepared to be parents. I don't know any parents who like. I can think of about 3 people that I thought, oh, she's ready to be a parent. Maybe 3 people I've met in my whole life that I feel like they're really ready to be parents. And that's why it's really hard for me to accept, you know. But I appreciate that there's this kind of culture around trying to say like people should be mentally prepared. At least there's this idea that people need to be mentally prepared for that. This is not an easy topic to talk about for any of us, I think. But I mean, I'm happy to talk about it with you guys. I'm really happy to talk about it. I think talking about it in public is even more tricky. So I appreciate that you're doing this.
I think these are complicated issues in life that I don't like to talk about them because it brings issues, you know, between people.
I think it's important to try to talk about them. This is heavier than I anticipated. But at the same time, I don't want to shy away from heavy stuff either.
And
I don't feel that's heavy.
Okay,
I think she's a very good guest, you know.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I think the reason it's heavy though is because like we all come from really different worlds. Actually, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, you know, and why I want to talk to people from different countries about these things, because we get stuck in these international kind of groups that have these international standards, but these international standards, a lot of them are set by America, by UK, by China, by these big powerful countries. And I want to hear this outside of those kind of forums where everything has this, like I want to hear what people really think too. So I don't want to judge so quickly, even though I have my opinions. But I want to try and be as open-minded as possible, just to let people have a chance to express their full perspective and to keep it or change it or whatever it is. I also want to see more people trying to have these conversations where they can hold their own opinions enough to calm down, not get angry about it. So even if I disagree with the whole concept of beating, I don't get really hot and angry about it, because I can step outside of it and say like, look, I didn't grow up in Nigeria, right? I can't imagine
you didn't.
the situation. It's really different.
You didn't.
It's really different.
It's a whole new different world. You know, sometimes when I make a post on the blockchain, you know, I get so many people misunderstand what's it's all about. Like some people cannot paint an exact picture of how Nigeria is one of the most distinctive countries in the world. Things are happening differently here, way more than it's happening in other countries. And sometimes when I create a vivid image of what happens here, people are left so much surprised and they can't even imagine it happening to them whatsoever.
Yeah. The approach is different too. So the thing that was really interesting about what you said to me was some parents are not angry when they're hitting their kids.
Yeah.
It's very hard to imagine that. Like, I think if somebody's hitting me, my first image is just that they're angry. And if they're doing it in a controlled way, I'm going to get angry at them. So it's like, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine that kind of thing. And so whether I agree with it or not, I want to imagine it. I want to try to get into that world as much as possible and hear other perspectives too. So in the future, I want to hear from other Nigerians too. But it's always good to have you too, because I think you have like a depth of experience too. Whew. Jingy is the only one that doesn't feel this is a heavy topic. She's like, I'm good.
I'm good. Interesting. I think now I'm thinking the second episode. We can say how to beat the children.
Oh no.
They're staying in different parts of Japan, right?
No. Wait. She's in Hong Kong. I'm in Japan. These are different places.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think is Hong Kong not the capital of Japan?
No.
Yeah.
That's Tokyo. Tokyo is the capital of Japan.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm getting old. I told you.
I understand. I don't know anything about, a lot of countries. So.
Okay. Wait. You are in Hong Kong is in China, right?
This is another complicated. That's a very political question. We're not going to go into that here.
I don't want political stuff, so I'm going to stop right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll come with you the next time you are visiting.
Yes. That's what I want. I want just to connect all these people we're talking with.